This is a week of tests for me. On Saturday, I'm going to be doing a 20-minute FTP test. Today, Wednesday, I'm doing a Zwift crit test. Hey cycling community, this is Steve Grusis, the Cycling Greek. Now, this race isn't a crit, but it's about as long as a crit. The typical Zwift crits I do are anti-sandbagging crits. Now, this isn't a crit, this is a circuit race, an anti-sandbagging circuit race, but it is about the same length as a crit, and this is what I had available today. Typically, the crits that I do are about 9.8 miles, and this is, I think, 10.4 miles, so close enough. Now, you may have noticed that I just gotten up to the main group. These guys started pretty strong. I was looking to start strong, but these guys started stronger, and that's typical of how my races usually go. The outcome I wanted to determine from this test was to see how I fared in these short, fast, strong races compared to how I was faring before. The last time I had done a short Zwift crit was about mid-December. I had done racing after that, Zwift racing, but they'd been longer races, and I actually incorporated my workouts at the beginning of the races and then raced toward the end of it. I'll have an example of those crits, those videos rather, in the description below. Check those out. I live in California, and this is my off-season. Typically, one of the things I do in my off-season about once a week is do something that's upper intensity, just so that my upper intensity doesn't die out. I need to do that because I'm an old guy. I'm a really old guy. I'm 66, and I'm subject to AFib, atrial fibrillation. In fact, that's what my channel is about. Modifying my lifestyle to see if there's a way where I can still do what I love to do, and that's race bikes. So far, so good. So let's go back to the test. Typically in these short races, I last about half of the race with the main group and then I get dropped. And then I'm either soloing in, trying to stay away from people, or I'm with a small group where we do what we can relative to how the race is playing out and then have our group sprint at the end. Usually when I'm with the pack at that first half of the race, I am on the edge or I am close to being on the edge. I kind of filter in and out depending on whatever surging is going on, but I am not comfortable. This off-season, I wanted to work on two things: my durability and my being able to maintain a strong, consistent pace on the flats. I started this plan in September by starting off with focused endurance, then working up the tempo, and then sweet spot. It's now mid-January, and I've already had about 2 weeks of over-unders, of time trial style over-unders. So let's now take a look at one of the tests I have for this race. And to do that, we're going to jump ahead. We are now at the 6-mile mark, ahead of the halfway point. And not only am I still with the group, but I've been pretty comfortable. I've been surprised how comfortable I was in this race. I am also starting to think that I can go to the line with these guys. One of the things I like to do in these races, and because I'm an old guy, is see the age distribution of those I'm competing against. We had 4 20-somethings, 10 30-somethings, 4 40-somethings, a couple of 50-somethings, and a couple of 60-somethings. And the other 60 is my buddy Bob. Back to the action on the screen, you'll see that somebody has taken a flyer, and you'll see that someone else is starting to go after him. Clearly, me not being one of the strongest guys in the group, I'm not going to react to that. I'm just going to sit in. Of course, I'm hoping that no one else reacts to it either. But by looking at what's happening now in front of me, everyone is starting to react to it. That means I have to react to it too. There are now 2 things I'm starting to look for. The first is to have a good wheel, and the second is for that good wheel to have a good wheel, so I can stay connected to the pack. I have neither one. I therefore am trying to bridge up to those in front of me. Now I'm looking for a couple of other items. One is to have somebody come past me that I can jump on their wheel, but not that fast. Can't get that guy's wheel. The second is to have the group in front of me slow down just enough before my legs die out. Looking at the graphics on the right, I'm in 18th place. I can see all the way up to 11th place, but I can't see my buddy Bob. My buddy Bob has made the break, and he's made it quite strongly. At least there's one 65 plus in the main group. My buddy Bob and I were fortunate in last year's modified race season to have a number of 65 plus races that we competed in. Usually when we went to the line together, he'd always beat me. Now when I told him I was doing this race, he signed up for it, but he also said, you know, I did this real hard ride earlier in the day. I immediately thought, oh great, he's going to beat me and have a little extra salt in which to rub it to the wound. Back to the action on the screen, it's time to take stock of the current situation. First thing I do is look at the graphics on the right, and I see that there's an insurmountable gap of about 6 seconds going to 7 seconds to that group in front of us. I next take a look to see who's behind us and how far they are behind us, because that'll tell me how hard I have to work for the rest of the race. With a little under 1 lap to go, and in this case about 1/3 of the race, the next group is about 2 minutes 6 seconds behind us, so I figure we're pretty safe. We have 4 in our group, and of course I can't tell how tired they are because we are all avatars. What I do is wait and see what they do. I see how strong they pull. I see how much they're resting. I see if they're going in the front to take pulls at all. If I attack, how quickly are they to respond? Things like that. I see it took a little bit for the graphics to catch up. We actually have 5 people in our group. I also see that the rider in the purple jersey is Jay Williams. Justin? I immediately start to think about how I can work that into a clickbait title. That is actually Jeffrey Williams, and he is a little under half my age, and the more I think about it, the more odd that sounds. I've jumped ahead to the final 1.5K. Obviously, we're still all together. There's been some minor attacks, and because how I interpreted how strong the group is, none of them were by me. Thinking that somebody's going to attack coming out of this climb, I'm going pretty strong up it. And I see that somebody seems to be attacking, so all I have to do is increase my speed just a little bit just to stay up with them, assuming that's going to be able to work out that way. And so far it is. Fortunately, I have a power-up available to me, an arrow power-up, the best one in this situation. I figure with this group, I only have 1 bullet left. I could try a couple multiple attacks and hope to rely on my quick recovery to do another effort, but of course the strength of those attacks and the quick recovery is all relative. And this seems like a pretty strong group, so I'm just going to wait for my 1 try. Currently we're about 1 kilometer out. Maybe I should attack with half a mile to go. Well, that still seems a little far out. Maybe I'll go with half a K to go. The closer I start my attack from the finish line, the more it turns into a sprint. And if you watched my channel before, you know what old guys are with sprints. Unless you're my buddy Bob. My buddy Bob is a pretty good sprinter. At a half mile to go, we're all being conservative and we're not even on the main straight yet. Once we pass the left curve, do the right curve, then we'll be on the finishing straight. The lead pack has already finished the race. They ended up about 1:46 in front of us. There is one person that's about 23 seconds in front of us, but there's just not enough real estate for us to be able to catch him. It is now half a K to go, and I position myself at the back. Meanwhile, Jeffrey Williams and Stephen Meyer are pushing between 3.5 and 4 watts per kilogram in the front. This causes the other two to increase their pace so they stay connected, thereby causing a gap to me. As I close the gap, I start my run. Jeffrey Williams sees this and starts his sprint with the arrow power-up I now see he has. With a little over 300 meters to the line, it's still a ways to go, so I don't initiate my arrow power-up yet. I'm hoping I stay close enough to him as his power-up burns out so I can start mine. It does, and I do. Jeffrey puts in a strong kick. I am out of my saddle. I am doing everything I can. There's people passing Jeffrey and me. Maybe I can pass Jeffrey, and no. Jeffrey gets me, but they screw up the results and they have me beating Jeffrey. That is definitely a protestable situation. Well, I hope you enjoyed this video and you got something out of it. Please consider subscribing to my channel. I talk about things directly and indirectly about what you can do to protect yourself so you can keep doing what you love to do even when you get to be my age. Remember, in the description below, look for one of my recent Zwift race videos and one of my on-the-road race videos with my buddy Bob. And as always, remember, comment, like, subscribe, the Cycling Greek.